Well, hello again, everybody. It looks like we're right at the top of the hour, and we've got such a great panel today. I want to make sure we start right on time. I'm Leslie Burkus. I'm the Executive Director of the Urban and Community Forestry Society, and you are here for this edition, the third and final edition of this year's Career Compass series. Again, we're so happy to have you here. And we're going to jump right in because, again, we've got an awesome panel to hear from, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for to hear from them and have your questions answered. So I just have a brief introduction. And first, I just want to start by thanking our sponsor of this series, the Davie Resource Group. Davie works with us all of the time and works with many of you to help grow urban forestry in your communities. And so we thank them for their support of this Career Compass. And overall, we thank all of our supporters of the Urban and Community Forestry Society, including Bartlett, Davie, and Eocene. And most of all, we thank you, the members. The members of this society are who make us who we are. Everything we do is in service to you to make you feel you're most confident in your urban forestry decisions you make and to speak on your behalf. You've got busy jobs that you're doing every single day, and an association, society like this comes together to have power in numbers. And that's what we're here for. And we want to make sure that you have what you need. So if you are a member, we thank you for that. And if you're not, we hope that you'll join when the time is right. So here again, you're here for the third of our three Career Compass. And this year, or this one, we're focusing on leading in your position. If you've been following along with us, our first one was about landing that job, getting your resume ready to go, prepping for your interview. The next one was imagining that you'd been just started in your role, and how could you feel you're most confident in those first few kind of uncertain months on a job. And now we're imagining that you're in it. Maybe you've been there a year or more, and you're ready to go. You're ready to leave from that position. You're ready to make big changes happen for urban forestry in your community. So we'll talk about defining and measuring success, how you build a program, putting the work in network, and how you go about continuing to do professional development. And then we'll end with Q&A. So as we get started here, please drop your name and where you're from in the chat. It's so wonderful for all of us to know where you're coming in from, and especially for our panelists to know who's here with us today. So let us know your name and where you're from. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted afterwards, and we'll follow up with you. It is ISA CEUs will be submitted on your behalf. So at the end of this, we will have a form ready for you, and you can submit for ISA CEUs, and then we will send those to ISA on your behalf. So real quick, if you are new here and aren't familiar with us, again, we're the Urban and Community Forestry Society, or UCFS as we go by, and our job is to build the confidence, competence, and camaraderie of all professionals who manage trees and forests to create and sustain more livable communities. And really what we mean by that is we want to be and are the professional membership home for the people who make or support a daily tree care decision. So if you were deciding who, what, where, when, why, or how a tree decision is being made, tree goes in, tree comes out, tree is cared for, this is what we're here for. Just like doctors, nurses, and lawyers have professional societies, you as a tree person get to have that too. And it's here to help make sure, again, you feel you're most confident in decisions you're making. And especially for some of you who might be newer in your career, having a place where you can connect with others, find mentors is really valuable at this time as you're trying to, again, grow in your career and find those next steps. So UCFS offers a variety of things, including our City Trees publication, a mentorship program that's, again, very valuable for those maybe starting out in your career. That will open up in late spring 2026. We have a Municipal Forestry Institute. We're about to launch our new accreditation program, and we always offer a monthly learning series. So definitely check out our events page to find out our next learning series. And real quick, if you haven't already registered for our upcoming conference in November, we really hope that you'll join us there because this is the time to be with your tree people. It's a place to network and learn. If you've been feeling like, oh man, I'd love to be with people who understand me, this is the place to be. You'll come and feel energized and you'll say, man, there's other tree nerds just like me. There sure are. Come together and join with them here. And you'll feel really energized after coming to the conference. And finally, again, we thank our members who are with us today. You are who makes this possible. We want to be here to serve you. And if you're not a member, we hope that you'll join. And so with that, I'm going to end my introduction and I'm going to lay out the groundwork. Where are we going from here? So we're going to have an awesome panel in front of us today. We're so fortunate to get to have Greg, Josh, and Matt Could you guys do a little wave for us? Greg, Josh, and Mads? Those folks are our Young and Emerging Professionals Committee members. So we have many committees at UCFS, and the Mads, Josh, and Greg are members of that. And that's for the folks who are 35 and under and helping to navigate their career, those unique things that young professionals and students face. So if you are ever interested in being part of that committee, please let us know. And then they will be facilitating conversations with Molly, who is with Tree Keepers, the program specialist at Open Lands. Hi, Molly. Molly works with the Forestry Department to train, sustain urban forestry advocates in the Chicago region. So we welcome Molly here, and she and Greg will talk about building relationships and collaborations. From there, we'll kick it over to Josh, again, our YEP member, who will work with Jen, the City Forester and Urban Forestry Manager at Portland Parks and Rec, and a UCFS board member. So we thank Jen for all of her service to the organization. And Jen has tremendously helped grow the Portland Urban Forestry Department. So you get to hear how she did that and her journey along the way. And finally, we'll kick it over to Mads and Ned. Ned is the Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager at the Pennsylvania, I think it's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Yes, okay. Bureau of Forestry. And previously, I got the great pleasure of meeting Ned when I went over when he was working for Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. So Ned has a long career of both nonprofit work and now working for state government. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to kick it over to Greg, who's going to lead the next discussion. Greg, you ready to go?
Yep. Hi, everybody. Greg Salwich here, Village Forester, Village of Downers Grove, Illinois. So I'm going to be interviewing Molly from Open Lands, which is an organization out of Chicago here. Molly specializes in community outreach and establishing relationships. So Molly, my first question for you is, what strategies have helped you build strong, lasting partnerships with internal departments and external partners?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Greg, for the question. I just want to preface my answer with I have experience in both municipal forestry and in the nonprofit sector. So I've worked for a few different municipalities over the course of 10 years, some in Illinois, some in Colorado, and right now I work for a nonprofit. So my answers are kind of two-toned. So with working with internal partners, specifically during my positions in local and municipal forestry, cross-collaborating across departments was always an integral way to get things done, to protect trees, to preserve trees, to plant trees. You're working with a lot of different departments, all the way from engineering to streets to utilities, and trees are not always everyone's number one priority. So when working on projects and when trees are kind of at the center of the conflict, maybe there's a new sidewalk going in or a street light going up or a new park being built. Keeping an open mind and always exploring creative ways to accomplish multiple, sometimes conflicting goals is key. So speaking personally, when I worked for the city of Fort Collins in Colorado, I used every opportunity to learn from my colleagues and supervisors that carry with them decades of experience. So the city forester at the time had been there for 42 years. So just really listening to his experience working with different departments and how to handle and navigate tricky situations. If there's a water line that's going in where a tree's supposed to go, how to have that conversation and really be the tree champion during those conversations. So I also took advantage of a lot of trainings that were offered through the city, which you may have the opportunity to do in your role. These are oftentimes facilitated trainings, very hands-on, a lot of practicing soft skills. So there was a specific training that I attended that was surrounding difficult conversations. And we were role playing with other colleagues in different departments that I would never cross paths with. And when you're developing those soft skills together, it builds trust and camaraderie and a friendship and a relationship that will allow your working relationship to really be set up for success. So, kind of bouncing back a little bit, when you're starting a new role and trying to understand different um, departments' processes, just understanding historical reasoning behind the development of codes and policies and different standard operating procedures, why they came to be. That's really important foundational knowledge to set you up for success when building bridges and connections with other departments. And then I do want to touch on the external partners, how to build good relationships with them. So in my current role, working for Open Lands, we do a ton of community engagement, and we work very closely with other organizations that have similar goals around urban forestry and conservation and public education. So to build relationships with our partners, definitely I'm always looking for opportunities to include them in participating in our projects and in our programs, giving them an opportunity to have input and stake and decision making, and taking the lead on different trainings that we have. So in my role, I train volunteers, and it's just really a cool opportunity for the volunteers to get to know many different like organizations. And so looping them in on conversations and decision making is key. So yeah.
Molly, I really liked how you touched on the sooner we are involved, trees are considered, and when arborists and forestry staff are involved in those decision-making processes early, the easier it is to come to a decision that benefits everybody, make it a win-win. It's very
Definitely.
hard. It's very, especially with different government entities, it can be very challenging. I mean, trees and infrastructure are always going to conflict. We always want to make a lasting, best decision that benefits everybody, which can be hard, but the sooner we do it, the better. So,
Yep, just having that seat at the table, ensuring forestry and the trees have a voice, a literal voice, a person that can speak on behalf of their importance is really key. And sometimes forestry isn't included in these conversations. So it's okay to insert yourself like, hey, see that this is happening and there's trees, but we're not involved in the discussion. How can we participate in some of the decision making processes that may impact the trees?
I just wanted to follow up with the Tree Keepers program now. How many members are you guys at with Tree Keepers now as well?
So in 2024, we passed 2,000 certified tree keepers. So the program's been around since 1991, and every year we have a goal to train 100 plus volunteers in the Chicagoland region, to be certified. So we have a new cohort starting this Saturday, and it's going to be a great opportunity to train some new tree advocates in this region.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So second question, how do you communicate the value of urban forestry to elected officials or non-forestry staff?
For sure. Yeah. This is a huge part of what we do at Open Lands. We have a policy team that is at our state capitol pushing bills that help preserve and protect nature. And specifically with our forestry team, we are always looking for opportunities to engage with our elected officials in Chicago at the aldermanic level, all the way up to our governors and senators. So we're inviting them to join us at our planting events. Come and get your hands dirty, interact with constituents, and encourage them to walk the walk. A lot of politicians, they have on paper what they do for the environment, but if they're actually out there planting trees and doing good, it goes a long way for them and builds trust with the community. So yeah, it's really that like in the field, trying to get our elected officials out and involved. We interact with a lot of corporations too at Open Lands. And so we're inviting them to attend our events and beyond our events, just we try and treat every opportunity as a way to engage and inform everyday Chicagoans, non-forestry skilled workers about the importance of trees and how to care for them. So as we've kind of talked about a little bit, the center, what I do is that I train volunteers called tree keepers. And it's an educational program put on 3 times a year, twice in English, once in Spanish. And everyday people attend this class where they learn how to properly care for, maintain, and advocate for trees. So when you train 100+ people a year, and we have this huge cohort of, huge network of 2,100 tree keepers across Chicago that know how to talk about trees and advocate for them. We have people in every corner of the city doing what all of us on the call are doing as a profession, just spreading the awareness of the importance and benefits of trees. So, and then when working in the public sector, when you're engaging with elected officials, and even just, I have an example when you're interacting with a resident who may not be know much about trees. Taking the time to really have that face-to-face interaction with the resident goes a long way. So knock on their door, pick up the phone, get away from your email, and have that face-to-face interaction where you can listen to them and really hear them out, but then also be next to the tree and talk about the tree. And can't emphasize that enough, just being out in the field and going on a tree walk, another great way to get people looking at trees and engaging with them. So
It's always easier to have those difficult conversations or bridge the gap that is so hard to get with email. It's much easier to do that in person.
definitely.
And when you can physically show people the root flare on a tree, the roots, why they're doing what they're doing, it can really make the conversation much easier. And definitely, that part of one of my favorite things to do is going on these service requests, talking to residents, trying to establish that relationship, because every opportunity like this is an opportunity for you to create another person who's going to be a voice advocating for you and your program.
Right.
It's
And
a great opportunity.
they may not start out as a fan of that tree. People have very strong relationships to trees, and that can be on the positive end or the negative end. You have a resident that's lived in their house for 40 years and they've watched the tree grow and they have this huge sentimental attachment, or you have maybe a more disgruntled neighbor that hates the catalpa leaves or how the sycamore tree sheds all of its sycamore things all over the yard. So it's but like taking the time to have that interaction, I have had many instances where I have changed someone's perspective on the tree just by talking to them and talking about the tree. So a little bit goes a long way.
I agree 100%. I think we're ready for Josh's segment now. Josh and Jen.
Thanks, Greg and Molly. That was great. So yeah, we will be talking about embedding, or I'm Josh Petter. I'm the urban forest planner for the city of Burien on the Young Emergent Professional Committee. And we will be talking about embedding urban forestry in policy and plans. So my first question for you, Jen, is how have you integrated urban forestry goals into city policies and plans, such as comprehensive plans, climate action plans, or development regulations?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. From my experience, I'll frame this up in 4 ways, this information. And the first of those is, again, we just heard about this from Molly, community advocacy. So Of course, in your communities, you're educating about the values and services of trees. Well, now you have a public who is interested and understands how important they are, and being able to support and coordinate with them, to communicate regularly with those community groups, and have them be the ones that lead in getting trees and urban forest management principles included in things like comprehensive plans and climate action plans can be really powerful. It's important for staff to be able to do that and work towards that, but having the community also do that, those community advocates, local nonprofit groups, neighborhood teams do that, is very powerful with a lot of elected officials as well as other leaders in a city or a municipality. The second of the four that I would mention is the showing up, being in the room, having staff from your team or yourself who are prepared, they're well supported, and they have the time to be able to be at the table from the beginning of that comprehensive plan or climate action plan or forest management plan, and be consistent on that and make the relationships, have the materials in hand to be able to contribute, be consistent about it. The third of the four, I would say, is know how to get the content into the plan. And by that, I mean, be aware of the progressive ways that are available to get your content into that comprehensive plan or other plan. Be looking across the country, across the world, to find out what are the newest ways, and have those ways satisfy the other goals of the plan. For example, if it's a transportation plan, like in the city of Portland, a few years ago, our transportation department worked on what we call Streets PDX, and it was kind of a master plan for streets design. And what we needed to do was understand what the mission of the Bureau of Transportation was, what their concerns were, and be ready to solve those concerns for them when they were related to trees. And by doing that, if you can solve everyone's goals as well as you can, it's easier for them to want to include trees into their plans. And then the fourth of the four, I would say, is connecting with government decision makers. If you're doing something that's a high level plan that maybe your council or your city government has to adopt or approve, then starting really early with them on the education part of why trees matter, and then keeping that up with them, getting them out in the field if you can to show them what the values of trees are, standing under a tree on a really hot day in the summer, and then stepping out into the roadway where it's going to be, 15 degrees Fahrenheit hotter, can really help them own and understand that. And you've created the relationship and the knowledge base where when it comes time to vote, they understand that it's important to include.
Thanks, Jen. That's helpful to have that breakdown. I feel like it's kind of daunting to look at some of these plans and regulations, particularly when we're not necessarily trained for the planning aspect. We might be more of the tree people as opposed to like the legislative people. So it is nice to hear kind of like those individual steps. Moving on to the next question. How do you make the case for consistent long-term funding for urban forestry? What metrics or outcomes have helped you communicate this value with decision makers? And then kind of a wrinkle to this, what happens when things go wrong in those situations?
Yeah, can't do much without funding, right? It's a reality we all know, and funding changes, and it can change unexpectedly. So the first thing I'll say is having a few different versions of plans, not necessarily written, but in mind, like if something changes in this direction, how might we respond? How will we reprioritize? Can be really helpful. Again, I'll say, I'm going to give you, let's see, 5 things that from my experience that I find are important in making the case for funding. Community advocates, again, if the folks who live in a community are coming en masse and telling the budget decision makers that trees are important for them, and even specifics of what they'd like to see funding in terms of urban forest management do, that is really powerful. The second, representing trees as essential infrastructure, not just aesthetics or something that's nice to have, but integral to a community being healthy, being able to address the climate crisis, being able to provide equitable government services. It's important messaging to use consistently for everyone involved and the community advocates as well, because remember, you're coordinating with them and you're working together. So you're all sharing that same message. Then a third thing I would say is helping folks understand that trees appreciate in value, unlike any built infrastructure. As soon as a bridge goes in, for example, we all know it starts depreciating. Trees, it's the opposite. And for a very long time, trees require, after the establishment period, trees don't require a whole lot of maintenance. They're great bang for the buck, unlike a lot of built infrastructure, especially when we look at all the services that they give us. So being able to frame that up is really important for funders. It makes sense to them then more often to fund trees as well as the other things. Also, I would say fourth item, use published research on the services and benefits of trees. Being able to represent that as staff is important, but being able to show that there's objective, independent research and data over decades illustrating the services we get from trees, that they're worth the investment, is very impactful, especially to folks who have competing budget priorities, and there always are competing budget priorities. And the last thing I'll mention is having the metrics and the qualitative information to show that the programs that you're doing are effective and they're efficient. Things like, these are data points we all know. What is the value of our canopy? What is the extent of our canopy? Canopy value, iTree, we're fortunate the Forest Service and Davie Resource Group created that, gosh, almost 30 years ago now, I think. And we can use that to translate the value of trees into dollars for things like carbon sequestration, which many communities are interested in now. That can help you tell your budget story and get the funding aligned to do that work. Because now it's really important they can understand in dollars what the impacts of the trees are. And then things about your programs, for example, if you're planting a lot of trees, what are the outcomes of planting those trees? You planted, and are they still there in 5 years and thriving? How many are thriving? Can you say it's 95% of that total investment is still there doing what it's supposed to do? That's a great statistic that folks who are responsible for public funds can rely on, and it makes it competitive with the other funding priorities in a city. That's, I think, all I have time for, Josh.
Thanks, Jen. That was great. I will pass it on to Mads and Ned to talk about our next section.
Thanks, Josh. So context about me, I am currently a community engagement manager for the Office of Sustainability for the City of Indianapolis in Indiana, which that's a long title, but there's no trees in there anywhere. I am an arborist. I previously worked both in the nonprofit urban forestry world and for the state of Indiana. And I met Ned, in New Hampshire? Is that the state? At a conference. And we realized we both worked for the same tree nonprofit before. So it's a small world. I'm happy to still be part of it tangentially. Nat, are you ready?
Absolutely. We're happy you're still a part of it too, Mads, by the way.
Okay. Question 1. What did your program, and maybe give me some context about what your program is, look like at year 1? And what was critical in scaling it up?
Sure. Thank you for the question, and thanks for having me. Thanks everybody at UCFS. So what our program looked like at year 1. So I'm the Urban and Community Forestry Program Manager for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Bureau of Forestry. That's a mouthful. I'm also an employee of Western Pennsylvania Conservancy as a contractor. So scaling up a government program as a contractor has certainly come with its fair share of hiccups and difficulties, but it's also been a pleasure to do. Some way, shape, or form, urban and community forestry has been a program in Pennsylvania since the early 90s. Most of that was done through Penn State Extension, and some of the original employees who were hired in 91 and 92 are actually still there, although they are close to retirement age. So we're scaling up at DCNR, as Mads alluded to in the question, so I'll talk about that in a bit. But we have 4 extension foresters historically who have provided tech assist, help with questions and webinars and presentations, mostly education focused since then. The Bureau has had somebody, like one person in this position doing the urban and community forestry work since the early 2000s, although when I started back in 2022 in January, we had 3 employees, including myself, a tree canopy coordinator and a tree equity coordinator. And one of them is still with us, although one of them left within the first year of me being here. So really, when I started, there were 2 of us, and you know, we've had to grow the program quite significantly. And I'll quickly allude to the 5 things I think we've needed to scale. Funding, as you've heard from the other speakers, like it's massive without the funding we've received from the federal government, but also from the Keystone Tree Fund here in Pennsylvania, and I can talk a little bit about that in a minute. I also have needed patience. I know our whole team has needed patience with, you know, the systems in which we are working. So I mentioned I'm a contractor as well. So I not only have to work with DCNR to make sure my job is being completed, but I have to work with Western Pennsylvania Conservancy to make sure I'm following their rules and all the stuff around that. So patience with the 2 systems that don't always communicate together, but also with the people you're working with, and also just with government work. Government work goes slowly. If there's one thing I learned in my 3.5 years here, it's that. And then I know Jen and Molly have both talked about this, but showing up in terms of scaling up is essential. When I started, we didn't have great relationships with our partners in Philadelphia. I'm based in Pittsburgh. So I made the effort early and often to get out to Philadelphia to show my face. And I've certainly been told that showing up has led to a better situation or a better partnership between DCNR and our partners in Philly. One thing that I think often goes overlooked when it comes to scaling things up and just, you know, working with folks generally is empathy. Understanding where people are coming from, understanding where the folks on your team are coming from, so that you can give them the tools and resources they need to accomplish the work. And then last, but certainly not least for us, has been goal setting. And we started with really modest goals as a way to accomplish things and build on that momentum. So let me get back to the fact that money is the game changer, the biggest one. So the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act funds that many of you probably know about changed our ability to hire folks. We had a team of 3 back in 2022. We're now a team of 6, although I still have 4 more positions that I'm supposed to hire for. So the reason I need patience is that there's a federal hiring freeze at the Commonwealth right now. And so we can't hire those positions. And I've had job descriptions ready for 2.5 years now. And, you know, we're being patient as we can, but it's, you know, at a certain point, I do think the funding does start to go away if we don't hire. So there is a balance there that we're trying to succeed on, but struggling a little bit. Patience with the system, showing up. I mean, I say this always, empathy and understanding are critical. When we were hiring for these jobs that we have hired for, the 3 that I alluded to that we've been able to add, we weren't super concerned about their understanding of trees and forestry generally. We were looking for people who were empathetic and kind and can talk to people and can listen without talking. So I think, you know, empathy, again, is maybe the most important piece of the scaling up, in my opinion. You know, we are trying to give our team the tools and resources to show up in meaningful ways. We're also, in terms of scaling things up, trying to make things more accessible for our partners outside. We do a lot of grants that we've been doing for years. Historically, it's been about $500,000 a year up until 2023 when we received Keystone Tree Fund money. You should look up the Keystone Tree Fund if you get a chance. It's the Department of Transportation led. Anytime you renew or register a vehicle or renew your license, you can click a button and donate $3. We're receiving about $500,000 a year through that, which is great. I digress. So one of the reasons I brought that up is that our grants are kind of inaccessible. And so we've been trying to find ways to make them accessible for the 2,600 municipalities we serve here in Pennsylvania. We're beginning to do direct contracting. So that's a way we've been scaling up as well. So, you know, we can do inventories and plans that way. We can do maintenance and plantings, even a little bit of workforce development, although we encourage those folks to go through our grants. But making it more accessible has been the name of the game. And I mentioned goal setting as well. When we hired the new folks, they're regional people here in Pennsylvania, we set a super achievable goal, which was to engage with 5 communities in meaningful ways in the first year. And so that's the goal. And of course, our folks have knocked that out of the park. I mean, they've done at least 10 to 20 each, and more often than not, at least 5 towns are having implementation work done through this effort. So we're really thankful for that. But again, I go back to the 5 things I think we need for scale, which is funding, patience with the systems and the people, showing up, again, just being in person as much as possible shows these people that you care and you are there to support them. Empathy for these people you're working with, for the systems, and then goal setting. So yeah, I was all over the place there a little, Mads. Apologies.
No, not at
That was a
all.
decent answer.
That was great. I really admire your patience. I think that so much of that is necessary if you're doing government work, which is glacial. I have a lot of thoughts, but I think the most important thing is like when you're stepping into this field, it can feel like you have to know all of those hard skills, all of the tree stuff, the nitty-gritty. And I think what I've found is the most important part a lot of the time is the soft skills, the people skills. Like you just got to be able to talk to people and I'm not convinced, but like talk to people about trees and the importance of that. And like that'll get you pretty far.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So you talked about goal setting, and that's awesome. That I mean, 10 to 20 communities each. I know how much work that is. But what other ways did you measure success? What other metrics have been helpful for you in measuring success?
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Mads. First, I take my job as a manager most importantly out of all my different titles and work duties that I have, because people are the most important part of all of this. And my personal success, I measure by the impact, happiness, and enjoyment of the work that my colleagues are doing around me and how happy they are with it. They're some of the most qualified people I've ever met. They all have lots of certifications and have worked really hard to attain them. And I will say there are folks who weren't ISA certified arborists when they started, but have since become certified because we've encouraged them to do so and they wanted to. So for me, like the success is when they're successful. If they're happy in the job and they're doing good work, then I feel like I'm doing mine. And so long as I'm continuing to provide the funding, the resources, everything they need to get the job done. And we are pivoting a little bit right now because of the funding drying up nationally. We're starting to move a little bit more towards an educational model. That's also because Penn State Extension Forestry program is starting to dwindle a little bit. So we're just kind of responding to those needs. But for me, that is the success of the program is how well they're doing. Of course, we can measure success externally as well. And, we have all sorts of metrics like number of trees planted, number of trees pruned, hazardous trees removed, the number of impacted municipalities, was there a management plan, is there a tree inventory, those things that are super important and give us the sort of hard facts of it all. But I honestly think externally for us to measure success, it's more about the trust that you build with these partners. And I'll give an example that I'm really pretty proud of. Hopefully in the process not throw anybody under the bus, because historically we have not worked super closely in Philly or Pittsburgh because we've had one person who lived in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and they would travel occasionally to those cities.
For someone who hasn't spent a lot of time there, what's the like driving distance?
So I'm in Pittsburgh on the west side of the state. It's 3.5 hours to Harrisburg from here, and then it's another 2 hours from Harrisburg east to Philadelphia. So Harrisburg is at least 2 hours from every major city in the state,
Gotcha.
which is, I appreciate the question for context. Pennsylvania is a big state, which is why I mentioned we have 2,600 municipalities we are meant to serve. So it's a lot, and we are meant to measure our success by the number of municipalities we impact. And historically, that's been Philly and Pittsburgh because our funding has been so localized into those places with the most people, because it did start as urban forestry, although we're pushing more towards a community forestry nomenclature just because we want everybody in the Commonwealth to understand they have access to these programs. So yeah, I mentioned external trust with partners. For me, when I started, folks in Philly really did not trust DCNR, Bureau of Forestry, very well, and for good reasons. I don't think the Bureau had engaged too much with them, and really, just showing up. We go every spring and every fall to Philly Tree Week. Me and our team, we try and show up as often as possible to those things just to show them we care. And I swear to God, just doing that has built more trust than they've ever felt. And they've even confirmed to me that like this is the most they've ever trusted the Bureau of Forestry, which is what we're trying to do. I mean, really, we want people to trust us, to know they can come to us for funding, for tech assist, for whatever it is they may need related to urban trees. So I'm really, really proud of that. And then, I think success in this line of work often is the amount of funding you bring in. And certainly, the Bureau of Forestry was quite pleased when we brought in $10 million in the Inflation Reduction Act funding, which, was the single largest grant in the Bureau of Forestry's history. The whole team won a DCNR recognition award for outstanding public service last year. So I do think, again, funding is a great measure of success, but I think the most important for us is that the people feel supported. I think another measure of success I can use is we host quarterly partnership meetings for partners across the Commonwealth, a lot in Philly and Pittsburgh, but elsewhere now too. And when I started, we had like 10 to 15 people who would show up to those calls. And now occasionally we get north of 40, closer to 50 a few
Wow.
times. So we're proud of that work. We're growing the partnership, and thereby growing the work. Because again, the more people know about these funds, the more that we're going to have demand. And it is, with the direct contracting coming online right now, it is sort of accelerating that process, which is exciting and certainly daunting. Yeah. Did I miss anything, Mans?
No, I mean, I appreciate the balance of, I don't know, there's qualitative and quantitative data, and how do you reflect both of those when you're talking about the work you're doing. But yeah, I really appreciate that.
Can I quickly chime in, Mads, real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do think the qualitative stuff sells what we do better, and I'll give two examples. We have a correctional conservational collaborative where we work at the Rockview Prison near State College here in Pennsylvania. And I have a story from yesterday where we did artwork together. We did a meditation first thing in the morning, and then we moved into nature art, and they made leaf mandalas with leaves they collected around the forestry camp at this prison. And I mean, that story alone, in terms of like, only 1 out of the 12 had ever done a meditation before. And, by the end of the day, they were all smiling after being really grumpy about being there in the first place. And after the art piece, they also were talking about, I want to share this with my kids. And so I think those moments are like, those qualitative moments can really sell. And I'll just quickly, I know I'm running short on time here. We also have a really cool story that's developing around what's called a victory oak. So in 1936 Olympics, gold medalists were given a Quercus robur, English oak, to bring back to the United States if you won a gold medal, or to wherever, whatever country you were from. Most of the winners from America threw their trees overboard on the ship back to America. One man who didn't was a black man from Connellsville, Pennsylvania, named John Woodruff, and his oak tree is still standing at Connellsville High School in Connellsville, PA. It's huge now. We went and visited it in August. But this is why, like, qualitative is great. I'm sure Carrie Tauscher at Crown Hill Cemetery. She reached out to us 2 years ago because John Woodruff is buried there. And while we were at the English Oak in Connellsville earlier in August, we actually harvested a couple saplings. And so we're going to plant those trees at his gravesite in Indianapolis later this fall or early in the winter sometime. And it's just, I think those stories help tell what it is we're doing so well in a way that reaches people's hearts and helps them to understand our connection to nature, to trees. And that to me is like, how I measure success. So I digress a whole bunch. Thanks, Mads, for
No, you're fine. I
me.
feel like we've still got a couple more minutes in our little duo, but yeah, that's such a powerful story, and I appreciate you sharing. It's like one of my favorite urban forestry moments is we had a fifth grade Arbor Day poster contest where kids submitted their drawings, and this girl won. And we ended up planting an oak tree with her on her birthday at her favorite park. And it was a Shumard oak, and her name was Amelia, so we called it Shamelia. And then like she was planting it with all of her friends, and her older sister was like, I want to do this for a job. And so it was just this like chain of events of like, oh my gosh, we've given so much to this, like I think it's like a homeschool group, and they have such a different perspective on trees now, and who knows how long that's going to last. But yes, and that storytelling is a thing that's carried into my work now. Like I'm not working with trees directly, but I'm still trying to figure out how to tell the story of the work that's being done, because who cares about greenhouse gas emission reductions? Like that doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's like, how is that actually making people's lives better? But I appreciate you, Ned, and I
appreciate
think I
you.
will pass it to Leslie to start the Q&A.
Thanks, you guys. Really appreciate hearing from you all. If all of our panelists and moderators could come back on camera. And, as you guys were talking, some questions were forming in my head, and I want to hear from others too. So please use the chat. And I know sometimes it seems like Teams and chat doesn't work for everybody. So hopefully you're able to use the chat. If not, the Q&A feature, the little buttons across the top. And I'm going to launch a quick poll here because I was curious how long the folks on this call have been in their urban forestry careers, because I wanted to get a kind of an understanding. And I know we're going to send out, there's going to be an evaluation at the end of this, and you'll be asked this again, but I wanted to hear right now where we are with folks. So I'm going to submit my answer. Okay. So team, you can see that those results. Hopefully, I think sometimes it goes in the chat. So it looks like most of our folks here are 12 to 20 years in the urban forestry career. It's a long time. 0 to 5, we've got about a quarter of the people here, 6 to 11 years, 19%, 44%, 12 to 20, and then 20 years plus at 17 years, or 17%. So thanks for that. Thanks for those quick responses, because I think that really could help frame some of the next questions. And I'm going to open chat to see if we've got any coming in. Because I think I thought maybe we'd have some of the folks that are newer in the career, sounds like we certainly do. But I think this question could go to anyone at any point in their job. You guys all had such great examples. Ned, you're a really specific one now about working with the folks in Department of Corrections. Molly, your work with tree keepers. Jen, helping move policy forward in communities. And I bet people here are like, yes, I wanted to do this. I want to do one of these projects. I've got something in my back pocket. But I'm still new in my career, and my boss is a gatekeeper and won't let things move forward, or I don't know how to sell this to the next person. Do you have some tips for folks about how they're energized? They like this project, they want to do something, they want to grow in their career, but they don't know how to maybe get it to that next part, how to sell it to the right person. Any ideas? Either your supervisor, and how would you want to hear that from your person you're supervising? Or how have you done that yourself? Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks, Leslie. That's a great question. I had to think a little bit about it, but and supervisors vary. It sounds like Ned would be a great supervisor to work for. I'll do two versions, right? Assuming that your supervisor is open and supportive and interested in your development, and believes that everyone has contributions to make that can advance the program goals and the community needs. Bring your ideas forward. Tell them what you think would be effective, why you think it's effective. If you can back it up at all with like community input, oh, this group we work with, they've said that they'd be really interested in this, or I've heard council or the government structure talking about this thing. We could help with that goal by doing these certain actions. And looking at what other cities have done in that regard. If you want to advance, for example, this has come up a lot. I think all of us have some version of education programs where we're teaching folks to take care of trees and advocate for trees. So you want to start something like that. Look at what Molly and her crew have been doing around Chicago, what Ned's been doing, what other cities have been doing, and help that illustrate to your supervisor, look how successful this is. We could do that too. The other type of supervisor who's maybe not so open, maybe a little threatened, whatever, just maybe kind of old school where they're not asking for staff input. I have found that it can be helpful to ask them what their goals are and what are the things they want you to focus on, what would help, and then frame whatever you want to do in that way. How can it relate to those goals that the supervisor has? How can it fulfill what they're trying to do? And things can be interpreted broadly. Someone can say this, I have goal A. Well, there may be parts of A that they're not really thinking of that are your goal. And you may be able to fit that in there. It's that old practice of like making them think it's their idea.
Yeah.
That can be effective.
Yeah. Thanks, Jen. Ned or Molly, anything? Or Greg, go ahead. Any of our panelist moderators. Go ahead, Greg.
I just want to add to what Jen said. The worst someone could say to you is no.
Okay.
Leslie, I think you and I talked about this at MFI. Like, I've been, me and my specific organization, they want me to fill every available planting space. Like, okay, we need more money then. They've accommodated. I also said we're going to need a watering contractor to assist with planting all these new trees. Otherwise, we're wasting our time and money, frankly. And they agreed. So asking those questions and telling people what you need to make things happen goes a long way. Just being open and honest from the beginning. So being honest always has been helping me tremendously. And getting things that I need to get the job done and get things going in the right direction. So it doesn't hurt to ask.
The answer is no if you don't ask.
Yep.
I'll also add that if the answer is no, we can't focus on this initiative or develop a new program right now, it doesn't mean that it can never happen or never flourish down the line. In my role working for a municipality, I was like, why aren't we having volunteers help us update the tree inventory? We're always talking about how behind we are on updating the tree inventory. We should train residents how to enter data into Davy Tree Keeper. And there was resistance, of course, at first, but by the time maybe a year and a half had passed, we had 7 people trained. We had a process in place. And it was the first forestry volunteer program that the city had seen in 40 years. So it may not be immediate, but just if it's something that you're interested in or believe that it can really add value to the program and help, there's no harm in pushing your idea forward and just keep bringing it to the table.
I think that's Ned, I think you probably all said this in a certain way, and Ned said it specifically about patience. And I know that it's like, cool, have patience. That's so easy just to say, but I really cannot stress that enough from my own personal experience too, of like, or I like to reframe it for myself. How many times somebody has to say something to me sometimes to get it through my thick head to be like, oh, I get what they're saying, or I see where we're going with that, or it takes people a long time, especially if it's not their idea, to, either find why it connects to their goals or what's going to be in it to make sure that they can do their jobs better. So just like repeating things over and over, showing up, which is all what you guys are saying here, is like showing up. You can get so far by showing your boss that I'm willing to put the work in, because a lot of their folks, some of their folks might not be at that spot. So by you showing up, it just helps you stand out that much more. I see a couple of questions in here. One from Allison. Soft skills were brought up a few times. What resources or training do you recommend for developing these skills, these soft skills, if they aren't available internally? Ned?
I'd love to take a stab at this first, if you don't mind. There aren't many trainings that I know of. When I saw that question come in, I quickly Googled it and saw all these, leadership training things you can sign up for. Honestly, from my perspective, at least at the Bureau of Forestry, I would encourage folks at the Bureau to join our DEI groups, because we talk a lot about, those empathetic listening skills that you need to to be able to talk to communities that are different from your own. And so I really would encourage you to see if your organization has one, and if not, maybe start one, especially right now. It's a great time to do it. It's needed more than ever. So that I would say is where I've gathered a lot of my soft skills, and I certainly encourage all of my staff when they start to join one of those committees that we host at the Bureau. So that would be my answer.
Thanks, Ed. Any comments from others?
Yeah, you just put it in the chat, Leslie.
Good, so you can help tee it up.
MFI! Municipal Forestry Institute is all about that. It's not so much focused on arboricultural or urban forest management skills. It's really about what we call the soft skills that are oh so important. So maybe you'd want to attend that. And I also threw in the chat too, I do think there are a lot of resources online that are free of cost, which is helpful, especially if your own program doesn't have that much infrastructure to rely on. And then there's finding people who you see doing those soft skills well. They can be an entirely different profession, and connecting with them and getting their assistance. Most people like to talk about the things that they're good at and share that. And it's complimentary when you say to someone, gosh, I've seen you, I don't know, wastewater engineer be really convincing when it comes to budget development with decision makers. Could you talk to me about how you got that way?
Yeah. And one thing, oh, go ahead, Molly.
Oh, I was just going to say that oftentimes in my current organization and past jobs, there have been lunch and learns that offer different soft skill trainings that are either put on by other departments or external facilitators will come in. The one that sticks out to me the most, and I mentioned during my time speaking, was the Crucial Conversations course. It was a 3-day intensive, very role play heavy of tense conversation, and just building confidence and communication to be respectful, empathetic, good listening skills. So all of that. And I refer back to my handbook from that training, which was like, I don't know, 7 years ago at this point. So, and then a recent training that I took was around project management, when specifically working with volunteers. So there's a million opportunities out there. I see a lot over LinkedIn, and MFI, I am filling out the interest form right now for 2027.
Good.
So
You're going to be the first one, maybe. We'll go check here. Mads, you had your hand up. Was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to offer, I think I've gained a lot from volunteering, and maybe you could even do that, some of it on the clock, like if you're volunteering at a community tree planting, because some of us have that ability to interact with community members directly a little bit easier if you're working for one municipality or one like small area, and it's harder maybe for Ned who's working for an entire Commonwealth. But just getting out there and talking to people and maybe being a little bit uncomfortable, and then maybe at some point you're helping organize community events, like that's where you're going to get the practice talking to people and honing those soft skills.
Yeah. Thanks, Mads.
if I could just add one more thing, finding someone that is a good mentor, either in your department or at your organization, someone that you look up to and really admire their communication skills. Ask to shadow them, go out in the field with them, and just soak up their candor when talking to people and their experience. I don't know. I think that there's a high form of flattery is
Yes.
just not copying somebody, but just soaking up their different traits that work well in communicating with other people. So finding good mentors, and then being a good mentor to other people that are in the organization. So
Right. Yeah, people want to help. I think you're trying to say that it's flattering to have someone ask you for help too. And so they really help. reaching out to someone in your department, a mentor, someone outside, and saying, oh, man, I just did this and I wasn't sure how it came off to my colleague. Could you give me some feedback? That kind of thing. People would really love to help on that. Mad says, I call it trying to be more like Ned. Oh, I can see that. Well, we're getting here to the top of the hour. There's some questions about the CEU form that has been dropped in the chat. If you're seeking NISA CEUs, that form is there. This recording will be posted onto our YouTube channel, and we'll be following up with you after this. And then I saw the question about prepping for certified arborist, and want to make sure you all thinking about certified urban forest professional as well, formerly municipal specialist. So please be looking for that credential. So we'll wrap up now. I see the people's contact coming in the chat. We'll follow up with that as well. And with that, we're going to wrap today, and we'll look to see you guys next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.